What's going on, y'all, and welcome on in. In today's video, I want to talk about a little bit of RTA, specifically hitting that master rank so that we can get these awesome exclusive Moonlight 5-star skins. Of course, they come to the shop later, but it takes so long. Let's go ahead and try to get that master skin now so we can lock in this Apocalypse Ravi Avatar Bloodlust skin. Looks so dang good. And a lot of you guys watching out there, I bet, can hit this master rank no problem. Now, of course, there's going to be a few exceptions. I'll go over that in just a bit, but I've been doing account reviews for the past month or so, and I can't tell you how many accounts I've seen, guys. Since if you're watching videos like this, my channel, any channel, tier lists, you're looking up guides, you're learning how to do hunts, how to be efficient, you're already way ahead of the curve of your average player, and a lot of y'all have the foundation ready. You just need a little bit of a push, a little bit of extra know-how, draft knowledge, and hopefully I can cover a few of those tips and tricks here in this video. But that being said, guys, if you end up liking this video, if you liked any of my past videos, please consider hitting that sub button for me. We're trying to get the sub count up on this channel, and I'd really appreciate it. But anyways, let's get on with the video. All right, y'all, before we begin the guide, let me go over some quick disclaimers. Now, in any gacha game, right, the fact that it's a gacha means there's a lot of random aspects, and everyone's account is going to look different. So if I say most y'all watching can hit masters because, you know, you've been doing your due diligence in terms of farming, whatever, if you've been a little bit less efficient, if you just started last week, if your friend has been spending a lot of money and you're free to play, your account's going to be a lot different depending on your play style, depending on which units you've been building up, how many mistakes you've made along the way. Every account is different. So some of y'all may have to work a little bit harder than others, but unless you just started playing very, very recently, I think a lot of y'all watching can definitely hit masters. Some of y'all just might have to work a little bit harder than your peers. But that's the nature of the game, right? Good and bad with gacha. So what makes me so confident that most y'all watching will be able to hit the master rank in RTA? We're going to be able to hit that master's rank because, number one, you can get master's rank while having as low of a win percentage in RTA as, I think, 33% or even a little bit lower than that. I've seen it, guys. Like I mentioned, I've been doing reviews for so long now. If you can win 1 in 3 games, you can hit master rank eventually. Now, our goal, of course, is not to be that low on the win rate. That's just like the bare minimum, so it's still possible. Let's say you're struggling, you made a lot of mistakes. If you can win 1 in 3 games, which most y'all can, you will be able to hit masters. But our goal, of course, is to get that win rate up so we don't have to struggle as much or play as many games. Because if you have the lower win rate, you're going to have to play more games naturally. Now, second reason is, guys, since you've been efficient, since you've been hunting, if you just have a little bit of basic knowledge on putting appropriate gear, I don't mean great gear, but just appropriate gear on your units, meaning bruisers have bruiser style gear. You're not trying any crazy gimmicks that you maybe see from higher end players. If you just stick to the fundamentals, the basics on gearing, I promise you're already ahead of the curve. And then last tip that goes alongside that, if you can have some draft knowledge, meaning can you draft in a way that suits your play style? Can you draft in a way that hides your goal while also not setting yourself up to get counterpicked and punished with some crazy, units? That means we want to formulate our draft to be safe in the beginning, allow our opponent to pick, and then react and take advantage of their units by using counters of our own. Now, of course, that's going to come with more advanced knowledge as you play, but I'll give you guys a basic foundation on how I guide players when I do my reviews, and how to kind of play in a safer way. Now, unfortunately, boys, that means we're probably going to want to be playing more of a standard kind of draft. So anyone that's trying to cleave at this rank in like silver, bronze, gold, unfortunately, I can't help you too much with that. A lot of that just comes down to, is your gear appropriate? If so, make sure your gearing and your speed is all speed tuned how you like it. And from there, just maybe watch some other cleaver guides. I have some reviews with top end cleavers. Just check those out, see what units, see how they build, and then from there go on. But I don't like to talk about those kind of speed matches in here because not everyone watching has speed, has been farming enough to make those kind of aggressive take first turn kind of comp. So we're going to play a little bit more safe, a little more standard. All right, let me go pull up one of my accounts that I have ready, and let's go and just talk about some tips and tricks. Okay, guys, so I actually pulled up footage from the account that we're going to take a look at so we can compare the progress, but I want to show y'all what we started with. So this was from Token, who was actually in the Twitch chat here. You'll probably see him typing if I scroll through this footage. But shout out to him for letting us re-review the account. But this account review happened maybe 4 or 5 days ago. And as you can see here, he wanted help hitting masters. And he is currently in silver with a 36.7% win rate. Now, I always ask my reviews to play some matches so I can go and look at their recent matches and, you know, examine their draft, see what we need to work on, what they're reaching for, what units they've been playing. Now, 36.7% win rate, guys, is low, but like I mentioned in the beginning, you can actually keep climbing at this win rate. But of course, we're going to want to get higher than that, so we don't have to play as many matches, and we can see ourselves improving. Never to knock anyone that plays RTA, guys. It is daunting. Some people have nerves. Let me know if you in the comments, are you avoiding RTA because of nerves? Because you don't like the thought of playing someone else one-on-one? Maybe prefer fighting the AI in Arena and Guild Wars. That's more your style. But if you think you might want to venture into RTA, and especially if you want to get that skin, guys, pay attention, because this is where I admire players that, you know, push past their comfort zones, take a lot of L's, right? This is a lot of L's, and you'll see how much improvement this guy in particular made. And most of my reviews, if not all of them, are exactly this kind of success story. So let's go ahead and advance forward a little bit and check out some of the exact drafts. Okay, guys, I pulled up the draft. I just went ahead a little bit in the VOD. Here's Token on the left-hand side. You can see him typing, and we're looking at one of his matches here against Franz. Of course, it was a loss, but that's okay. We're going to learn more from this, and let's focus on what we can use or what we can improve on. We're not going to be too analytical, guys. Remember, we're just in silver. Our only goal is masters. There's a lot more there's so much that goes into drafting, guys, in terms of flowcharts, in terms of what we're showing in our pre-bans, in terms of what the perfect post-ban is. But we're just going to focus on the basics, the fundamentals, and how to improve just this one specific example, right? Let's focus on small improvements rather than trying to overwhelm ourselves. And that's why I recommend you guys watching, even if you don't have the exact units that Token is using, the ones I'm going to recommend him to build that you'll see later on in the video. If you just play a more standard reactionary bruiser style, we're going to be able to slot in alternative units, whatever you have access to, because we're going to be just playing safer with knight supports and then DPS that we want to use that are either safe or that can counter our opponent's drafts, punish them for their picks. We want to be more reactionary in the beginning. Okay, so let's look at the draft itself. Franz first picks the Hua Young, which I would actually recommend, guys, if you play a lot more tanky units, more bruisers, to pre-ban. But Token pre-bans the Ran, which is acceptable. Ran can be very difficult for players to fight in the beginning, especially if you don't have units like Designer Lilibet and Edward, just to name a few. But Hua is also a very, very important ban if you don't, you know, use her yourself. So our opponent picks the Hua Young, and we respond with the Milim and the Spectre Tenebria. Now, Spectre Tenebria is a fine answer, a pretty good answer to Hua Young, right? Hua has no way to attack her in stealth, no reach, I should say. But the fact that we picked Spectre Tenebria this early means you know our opponent is going to counter that with some area of effect skills like this Ida and this Cavil. So even though it's a strong pick into Hua, it is still a little bit risky to pick it this early. But I think it's fine here in this spot if we can protect her enough, if we don't set ourselves up to get trapped. Now, the Milim, though, I don't think is a great pick this early on. As Milim is a unit we want to be reactionary with. She has a lot of counters, right? Anything with ice, anything that she can't kill outright. The fact that she's a little bit squishier, generally speaking, means she can get punished by a lot of units. And she's also dies pretty much to Hua Young here, unless we can just burst her down. But we never want to rely on, you know, outspeeding if we can avoid it, and we never want to rely on outgearing our opponent, as there's always going to be someone you fight that has better gear. Instead, we want to beat them through smart drafting, right? So Milim is not a safe choice, not a good one in my opinion, even though she ends up getting banned out. I think both players actually banned incorrectly, but that's not too important here. We want to focus on what we actually chose. Now, later on, our opponent responds by picking the Ida and the Amelia, right? Showing a lot of damage, guys. Ida, of course, one of the strongest cleave/aggro units with souls, right? She's going to have target health. She's going to be able to do 2 area of effect damaging skills that will often wipe your entire squad, especially when given attack up and speed boost from the Amelia here. So our opponent is showing a lot of aggression. We respond with Crow, a Knight, which is fine, which is good. Most drafts you want a Aureus holding Knight to provide extra support, mitigation. Instead of Crow, though, units like Roz will work better. Maybe not in this exact scenario, but I think Roz answers more opponents, and our opponent did end up picking Rimu at the very last pick, which Roz is very, very strong against. And you're going to see a lot of Rimus flying around, especially at lower ranks. Make sure all of you build up a Roz. He would have probably been better here overall. We also picked the Rowana, which is good into Commander Pavel, guys. And even, I guess, okay into Rimu, as we'll get a little bit extra healing there, too. The problem is we picked the Crow and the Rowana, right? The Rowana was picked before the Commander Pavel was picked. Because if you guys can see this, right? Here's how the draft order goes if you haven't played too much RTA. Our opponent that has first pick, whoever has first pick, right? They get the #1 choice. We have 2 picks here. So we picked Milim and Steny on Imp Trip's end. Our opponent responds with 2 picks, Ida and Amelia. We get 2 more, Crow and Rowana. So we picked the Rowana before the Commander Pavel. So this Rowana was picked while we only see Hua, Ida, and Amelia. Not a strong Soul Weaver, not a strong choice here until after we see the Commander Pavel. So a little bit of a mispick, and then we ended up banning him, which is double worse. You know, not a good scenario to be in. And then last pick, we have Montmorency, which unfortunately, with how much speed and aggression our opponent is showing, she will probably not be able to keep the units alive. She may have just died before that, or, you know, it's just not a good scenario to be in. Instead, we wanted to pick, you know, maybe more units that can interrupt. So units like, for example, we have Politis. If we don't have Politis, we have units that are just tankier, like Senya, Green Armin. We have units, this is why Hua Young is kind of an issue. We could also pick units like Rem with another knight, pick 2 knights in Rem, so that makes sure they cannot ban it out, and hopefully we can survive the Hua Young if she misses. There's just a lot of different answers we chose, and we sort of made some mistakes on the drafts, but don't worry, guys. That's going to come as with experience. Just I'll show you a formulated draft that we picked that's a little bit safer and will protect you from getting punished too hardcore. Okay, guys. So I actually want to go over some footage of a match. After I told him, we looked at the losses and I told him what to improve on, I actually played a match without changing too much. I didn't build up any new ML5 stars that he had waiting in the storage. I kind of just maybe re-geared a few things in his account, and I was going to show him how I think he should draft. Now, I don't always win these because I haven't had any chance. This is still during the normal review. I just moved around a few things, and I'm going to draft in a different order, and I'll show you how important that is. Now, even if we lost, I think I still would have shown him a more effective method than what he was picking in the beginning with like that early Milim, early Spectre Tenebria. And keep in mind too, guys, even though I'm playing on his account, this is for educational purposes. You're not supposed to be playing, you know, RTA on other people's accounts, but I've talked to Smilegate. They've said it's okay for the most part. So that being said, I'm going to play one match here. Let's see how it ends up. Let's see what I did differently compared to how he was drafting against that Franz player, the draft we just reviewed, okay? So let's scroll ahead here, and let's go through the first few picks, guys. So I actually pre-banned the Hua Young. Remember what I was saying before? I recommend most people ban Hua Young. I don't think Token had a great Hua himself, and it's just a safer ban if we have some answers to Ran. And luckily, our opponent banned out the Ran for us, okay? So now we don't have to deal with Hua and the Ran either. So our opponent first picks, I believe, yeah, they had first pick. They picked Yen, a very strong pick, guys. She's just one of the strongest warriors of the moment. And remember what I was saying? Let's get that Roz. Everybody's Roz. I think he's such a great first pick. He counters Rimu. He has that barrier to counter or to protect a lot of just back row units that you might want. He has defense up, dual attacks with defense break, provides immunity. He does everything, guys. His only weakness really is heavy debuffs, which we can sort of mitigate with how the rest of the draft goes. But I think he's a strong early pick, depending on your style, and let's see what the rest of the picks are. So second, I pick Amelia. I noticed Token had Amelia on his account. This could be another Soul Weaver, guys, even Montmorency if we have to dig super deep. But I like Amelia here because she, just like Diane, she's, you know, one of the stronger Soul Weavers that we have access to. This could be Diane, this could be Amelia, this could be any other stronger Soul Weaver. But the major difference is, right, guys, since our opponent picked Diane first and now FCC, we're both kind of hiding our DPS units, meaning we don't want to reveal what our game plan is, because if we pick an Earth unit, a Fire unit, an Ice unit, or even sometimes the Moonlight 5 stars, they all have their counters, they all have their counter picks. So the way, if we just draft neutrally in the beginning, right, with a Knight and a Soul Weaver, same thing my opponent's doing, he's playing pretty smart as well, then we get to hide and react to our opponent's pick. So let's see what the next pick is. Our opponent gets FCC, which is a strong Knight, and then he goes into Spectre Tenebria. Now Steny is very strong, and I think in the third pick spot, it's okay. Now remember, guys, we're going to be fighting a lot of Stennies. A lot of y'all picked Steny from your Mystic Connection. So one thing, just a side tip, one tip and trick, is to have some reach AoE answers ready for her. You have answers like Carrot, you have answers like Landy, even Steny here, or sorry, excuse me, guys, Senya here. Now, I think we're going to end up picking Bellion too. Keep in mind, you don't need Bellion. She was on the coin shop. Some of y'all may have access to her, but she's not a requirement. There's other reach units, but I do think we will end up picking her. And I think she doesn't even have that great of gear on because I don't think Token was using her. But let's keep going on in the draft here. So we do get the Bellion, a great answer to the Spectre Tenebria, right? So we have one ML5 here. Our opponent takes the Landy, which Bellion is great into as well. But this could have been Carrot, boys, and also be still very good. And then last pick's AOL. So in gold, guys, our opponent has DN, FCC, Steny, Landy, and AOL. A very strong composition, no? It has support, it has sustain, and it has some offensive damage with just some busted units like AOL. We have mostly, you know, RGBs. We did pick one ML5, but let's see what I counter with after seeing the Landy and the AOL. One thing I remember Token's account is not having great cleanse. Not a lot of people have access to Hand Guy or can't build their, their Soul Weavers with 200 to 300 effect resist. That's okay. We'll have to do what we can. I dig deep. Let's see what we have. And I think I end up just picking the... Let's see what I end up picking here. Do I just pick up the Milim to scare off? Okay, guys, so I picked the Milim here. Just that's what I chose because I think our opponent will probably want to ban it because he wants to keep his Landy alive. And even if she doesn't get through, we're going to ban the AOL because our Amelia doesn't have enough effect resist. And if she debuffs our whole squad, remember I said Roz is overwhelmed by debuffs. It's going to be a tough story. Senya as well is very punishable. Most units are punishable by AOL, right? So we ban that out. We set up our draft guys in a very important way, meaning when we react and respond to our opponent's picks, we usually can just safely ban the last pick because all our picks in the beginning were either safe or they were in response to our opponent, right? Meaning a lot of times we can just end up banning the last pick. Our opponent, admittedly too, drafted pretty well and he was able to just ban our last pick, but we trapped him with the Bellion as well, and he probably shouldn't have picked that Landy here. So Bellion is going to be very good. Can hit both of these units, Guiding Light and just Inherent Stealth. She has the Reach. Senya has a Reach S3. And even though I don't have time to watch the full match, guys, I will just scroll through it slowly. And as you can see here, we did lock up the win. Senya ends up provoking everything. Bellion provides the mitigation. Roz has the mitigation as well. Or sorry, Senya, or... what did I say? Bellion provides a mitigation through the use of nullifying the books. Even though she was on some subpar gear, I believe her gear was very poor. The fact that she just blocks the books and then eventually can provoke, backup provoke, or, debuff and just hit these Stennies and the Landies means she's good enough in this spot. And as you can see at the end of the match, right before our opponent yields, we are still full health. We just completely outdrafted our opponent. And I promise you guys, the gear, most likely, I bet the gear was even or we were even behind on gearing. I can't show you the exact gear without scrolling through the entire VOD, but I promise the Bellion, the Senya, they weren't on the best, okay? So it wasn't a gear gap situation. Okay, guys, let's jump to the last segment of the video and check out Tokens, aka Mtrip's account now and see how he's doing. This review that we just went through was 5 days ago. Let's look at his current progress. And I am so proud of him, guys. We went from a 30-something% win rate in silver to now rocking above positive, 52%. Easily going to get masters here anytime he wants. He just has to put in the games, and he has been putting in the games. And he's gotten from all red losses to look at this beautiful victory screen. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the example drafts that he's doing now. See if he's been following my advice. Let's start with his bottom against his gold opponent. So, guys, he is picking that early Roz like I showed him. Our opponent does have that Ran. Remember, we do have to fight Rans if we're pre-banning the Hua. And he's also last picking the Spectre Tenebria instead of earlier picking it. That way we don't get as punished as hard. Overall, I'm not going to analyze the drafts too much here, guys. We don't have the time for it, number one. And two, things could always be better. But the point is he got the win. He got the dub. And he started drafting in a little bit of a safer fashion. I think I could recommend a few different changes here. But if he's getting the wins, if he's, adjusting it, that's all I can ask for. Let's look at another one here. He is picking this Archdemon Mercedes a lot more. A lot of y'all watching may not have access to this. But remember in his earlier picks, when I showed my example match, the only ML5 I chose was Bellion. We always have alternate answers, guys. Sometimes Moonlight 5s will make that easier. But in this scenario, right, we don't need the Bellion here. We're not fighting a Spectre Tenebria for anything. Actually, this Bellion there's a lot of better options than Bellion here. Any Ice Bruiser would have been great because we ended up banning the Earth unit and he has a lot of fire. The Archdemon Mercedes is always a strong pick, but a lot of y'all may not have it. You can just replace Archdemon Mercedes depending on what we're fighting. She is great into Ed, but another unit that's great in Ed that some of y'all may have is like Shu. Maybe units like what's her name? Seaside Bologna on a bruisery build. You have a lot of different options, guys. Don't take too much stock in the fact that he's using ML5s now. It's not as required. It'll maybe help you out, but I was showing him in the past, right, when I was picking like Senya. You don't necessarily need those units. Just use what you have. Don't let it discourage you that he has some ML5s here. But overall, he's drafting in a much better fashion, right, with that early Amelia, early Roz, and then responding appropriately. Very proud of him. He did it. Guys, if you need extra specific help, I would have to do a review. I try to keep things more broadly. So in closing, let's recap what we learned, boys. Number one, a lot of y'all's accounts are already good enough to hit masters. You might just need a little bit of guidance, a little bit of a push, either from me or from someone else. So hopefully this video helped maybe invigorate you, give you that confidence boost you need to just step in and start playing to get that master skin. Maybe you'll end up enjoying RTA a lot. You never know. So we want to draft in a safer fashion. Our early picks, right? Our early picks should be units like Roz, Amelia, Those could be any knight, any soul weaver. Just try to pick stronger ones that you have access to. Then later we hide our DPS and respond with counter picks to our opponent. That's the general gist of it. Don't try to show, unfortunately guys, if you want to play your fun units, you're going to have a harder time. I would recommend picking and investing in solid units in the beginning, and then once you get established, once you have a lot more gear rolling in, more knowledge, then you can kind of pick fun units, play a little bit off meta. But it's better to pick strong units in the beginning if our goal is to just hit masters. Okay, so get the best gear to your units that you plan to use. For units like Roz, Carrot, if you have bruisers like Alencia, Senya, remember if you watched my selector video before, guys, ML5 suggestions, all those, take those stronger units, give them your better gear, draft in a smart way, and most y'all watching, if not every single one of you here, as long as you didn't start playing like yesterday, will be able to hit masters. Some of you might just have to work a little bit harder. All right, guys, as always, let me know if you have any extra questions in the comments below. If you want specific help, you're going to have to get a review from me on Twitch streams. But remember to subscribe to the channel. Hopefully this helped you guys out. Good luck on getting masters. Get that awesome A-Robbie skin and all the future ML5 skins as well. Thank you, guys. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.